Liam Eckert, Major of the USMC Special Ops Unit Lamora, reporting in. The mountains are cold and quiet. Besides myself, there's only 3 remaining in my squad. If the past few hours are any indication, well, we'll all be dead by sunrise. The thing, ungodly vile and beyond comprehension, is still out there in the forest beyond. We found shelter in a cave, the damp space providing us safety for a little while, but it could easily be right outside our doorstep, and we wouldn't even have a chance to scream. In the event we perish, I leave behind the record of what we found here, hopeful that the creature will only kill us. What little good these notes will do, I can't say, except to remind us all that the world we think we understand is non-existent.
October 22nd. My squad consists of 8 other seasoned Marine officers that I have served alongside for nearly 13 years. Our commanding officer, Jack Taggart, gave us the mission docket at approximately 2,300 hours. While I can't include the exact details of the report here, I can summarize to let you know that we were ordered to eliminate a threat that's been identified near the Yosemite National Park. Judging from the initial briefing, many of us had a look of confusion on our faces when we were told to hunt and track down a creature that, by all accounts, should not exist. Most of us assumed this had been some kind of training exercise, or that it was merely a secret mission and the orders that we were given were false. All my years, I never expected we'd be going in search of Bigfoot, Lieutenant Bosch said with a hearty laugh. There are a few in our group that have taken our instructions to the letter, though, and studied what little they can to find out about the creature that we were supposed to be hunting. At the time, I was sure the information we had obtained from the second-hand web searches and strange drawings were merely the stuff of folktale. After everything I'd seen and heard, I can't be sure any longer which of the documents we found are true and which are false. The data we obtained told us the creature is approximately 39 to 42 feet tall, with some cited to be as large as 53 feet. But that alone seemed to make it impossible for it to hide in the woods unseen. No creature on Earth had that type of camouflage. The other details included that the creature was able to mimic any kind of sound, including voices, which supposedly it used to lure people to their doom, hence the name, but I couldn't wrap my head around why anyone would be fooled to follow such a noise into the unknown. And how could such a lanky creature even feed on flesh? The drawings resembled something like a rusted, dried-up gibbon, with no feasible way to consume except for a thin mouth near the top of its twin heads. In some ways, it resembled the roots of a tree, winding in and out of the body to create a conglomeration of mangled wires. But none of it seemed real to me. Even after we arrived, we were given details about its hunting territory. I still denied this was why we were really here. Surely there was some other reason than to track such a ridiculous-sounding monster. October 27th, we set up base camp near the foot of the mountains. 3 soldiers were told to start reconnaissance of the surrounding area and take photographs of everything. As Taggart explained, the creature could easily hide amid the forest by looking like any other large tree. I decided that evening to entertain the notion that this beast was in fact real and existed in the shadowy, quiet woods that surrounded us. So I asked how it was that this creature had come into the interests of the United States Army. Taggart put out his cigarette and looked out wistfully towards the stars. Well, about 2 years ago or so, there was a survey going on over in Afghanistan near the Chinese border. Whole battalion wiped out. No one knew what happened for nearly 3 months. Most of the reports had written it off as some kind of terrorist attack, but then one of the team members, they managed to come back alive. Henderson. I can't remember, but he starts rambling on and on about how this bizarre creature had found them in the desert. Taggart seemed to pause as though he had heard something off in the distance, told us that we should set up camp a little further into the mountain trail just to be safe. When we all arrived, When we all asked why, he claimed it to be too quiet where we were. A few hours later, once we had settled down, Bosch noted the team we'd sent out earlier still hadn't returned yet. Tiger took that as a sign that we were already in the creature's territory. He ordered Bosch and I to unload the heavy sound system he brought with us and explained, "When the creature's sleeping, it blasts white noise. Soft harmonic music that anyone can mistake as just nature's creatures buzzing about the night. It also keeps the creatures from invading each other's territory. From what I understand, they're very solitary monsters," our CO explained. The rest of us still didn't know what to make out about all this, but obediently complied. The remainder of the night was just as unnerving, as Taggart refused to sleep and kept adjusting the frequency of his radio. "Might pick him up," he explained softly. October 30th. Nearly All Hallows Eve. No more appropriate time to be hunting monsters, I suppose. We haven't heard back from the first recon team, and while Taggart seems to believe the monster took him, most of us think they simply bailed. Some of the teams began to question the CO's sanity for coming here now that we've confirmed that he is interested in these ungodly creatures. I too wonder where this all is going to lead. 3:30 a.m. Witching hour, some say. I hear Taggart attempting to whistle towards the woods as a storm is blowing in. It's sad to see that he's come so far from the man that I respected. But a moment later, after he makes the noise, something out in the brush whistles back. He freezes as a crackle of lightning splits the sky and we begin to hear what sounds like a reverberating quake across the entire forest. Then a low droning sound sounds across the wood like an actual storm siren used for tornadoes. "What the hell is that?" Officer West shouted as he stumbled awake, and Taggart signaled all of us to remain still. We watched the canopy to see if anything was moving amid the trees, but all we heard was those wrenching noises of massive oaks being pushed over, along with that same droning noise. Eventually it faded away into the night, and Taggart told us it was time to go collect evidence. This time we all followed without question. There were approximately 7 downed trees that we found 45 meters east of camp, large redwood that could not have possibly been shoved down by anything except some massive, aggressive force. Our CO made sure to remind us that we needed to have our weapons drawn and ready for anything. The air was unusually still. Then I looked down to the ground and saw massive claw marks the size of tire tracks. It reminded me of the way bears would mark their territory. I sent a chill up my spine. That feeling of unease only grew when immediately we heard the strange noise being echoed around us. Suddenly, all of us were aiming at the tree line as the voices echoed loud.
Previous. Square. Dogs. Link. Father.
Each voice sounded almost human. Nonsensical ramblings that were designed to confuse and disorientate. We heard the crashing of trees around us, and then I turned and saw the unspeakable. Long, bony fingers that seemed to come from the tops of the trees, reaching down and grabbing Taggart like a rag doll, hoisting him up as more gibberish spelled out. Closed. Shiny. Month. Determined. Enchanted. I heard Taggart scream and order us to fire, but none of us knew where to aim amid the trees. A moment later, his scream stopped. And then from the canopy, his body fell with a resounding thud, broken in two by the giant that had ripped his head off with one single bite. Fall back! Fall back! I ordered the others, as the blasting siren noise now deafened the woods, and I saw a massive foot lift up to walk towards us. Bosch and 2 other soldiers did not listen to the warning and tried to fire into the beast. It sounded like the bullets were hitting something, like a metallic plate, and not penetrating to do any damage, and then the forest only had the sound of the creature's confusing, garbled noise. As those soldiers suffered the same fate as our CO. November 3rd. There are only 5 of us left. We've taken to the old fire trails that were used by rangers to radio for assistance. To be honest, not many of us know what we're supposed to do. Anytime we have considered leaving, the creature sends out another mighty roar of noise. Some of it even sounds like people we know. Taggart. Bosch. It's constantly on the move. Amid our limited supplies, we discovered more reports from Homeland Security that detail the purpose of this mission, to not only to track and monitor the monster, but to attempt to determine how it operates so that our own military can mimic it on the battlefield. According to Senior Officer Harold Garand, one of the main tasks was to find a weakness for the beast, but perhaps what was the most disturbing out of the entire report was what the concluding sentence had to say. Should the Delta team prove to be unsuccessful, 5 more units are standing by to attempt to capture the beast. I couldn't fathom more men coming here and losing their lives the way that Taggart has. My only prayer is that we're able to survive long enough to warn others to stay away. November 7th. We haven't heard the creature for several days now. We decided to attempt to escape the nightmare. We found an old map discarded by some unfortunate camper here, and we're gonna use it to find a radio tower. God be with us that we can find it there without incident. Halfway to the tower, we heard the distinctive slow white noise of the creature echoing around the area. At first, the melody would have been something that could put us at ease, but given what we know now, not a soul dared to take another step. I raised my weapon and moved up the trail, looking about at the different massive tangled roots and wishing I could determine which one might be hiding the malevolent tree god. The other men followed me cautiously as we arrived at the tower, hastily climbing the steps to signal to our home base that we needed rescue. Opening the door to the dusty watchtower, I got the strange sense of being watched as I stepped into the shadowy room. It was clear that the place had not been operated in quite some time, and that any equipment we hoped to use had now fallen into disrepair. There's a first aid kit, a few flare guns. Nothing major, though. Wes reported as he turned to me for orders. With Taggart gone, I was opted as leader, and the responsibilities didn't feel as great as I had hoped. Given what we were up against, I knew that one word wrong could send us to our deaths. I think I opened my mouth to order them to gather what they could, but the words never came out. Instead, that white noise shifted suddenly to a blasting, intense, shrill pitch that made us all fall to our knees in agony. The noise did not let up as I crawled over towards the balcony of the watchtower, using the massive spotlight that was attached to the side of the building to try and get a good look at the creature. I'll never forget the long strides it took as it gracefully sifted through the forest, treating the tops of the trees as though they were grass to be brushed by. It was moving towards us at an alarming rate. I shouted as loud as I could to my squad to retreat, but already Wes and other officers were convulsing in shock due to the resounding alarm that the siren was giving. They were beyond recovery. I pushed my way down the stairs just as the mighty creature reached into the watchtower and took both men with its dry, bony hand, raising them high into the night sky. As the garble turned to a soft, almost soothing music, perhaps something to ease them into accepting the fate they were a part of. And then it dropped them towards his open mouth. The teeth gleamed in the moonlight as its massive, snake-like tongue whipped out and gobbled them up. The rest of us stood transfixed as it crunched their bones like we might chew on crackers, horrified at the idea that our fellow soldiers had fallen into the belly of the beast while still alive. Then, just as suddenly as it had come, the creature stalked back into the forest, finding its way amid the taller of the trees and disappearing from sight. "We should stay here," the man next to me said, trembling as rain began to fall. I saw no reason to object, too dazed by the events of the day to even to even consider making a run for it. November 8th. By mid-morning, we resolved to take the trail into the mountains and head for the nearest campsites. It seemed unlikely that the beast would follow us into a heavily populated area, but we had been wrong before. In the morning sun, I could almost make it out amongst the trees. Its long, bony legs and arms stuck together to further resemble a massive lumber. As the wind shifted it from side to side, air felt electric as I gave the order to leave. I wondered too, as we marched on, if it was all alone here in the forest. Most of Taggart's documents claimed that it was the last of its species, but sightings had been all around the world, so it seemed almost impossible. How could one creature have caused all these problems? But I never would doubt its ferocity, no. Not after seeing most of my friends die before my eyes. As we reached the mountains, we heard the creature wake up again, blasting more mindless noise as it started up the hunt. Would we be safe if we traveled further? I guess only time will tell. I didn't try to make any further notes as we traveled this harsh landscape. The creature seemed to be one step ahead of us the entire time, forcing us into these caverns, mimicking even our lost loved ones to torment us with the fact that we're now mice trapped in a maze. I don't know for sure what will happen when it finally zeroes in on our location. I only pray this document's found by someone who knows what to do with it. How to get it out there for others to be aware of the threat. Lieutenant Commander Eckert. Signing out. Mother Nature is terrifying. Living in rural Kansas, I learned at an early age what a tornado shelter was. We lived in a trailer park on the outskirts of town, so when the siren started wailing, we knew the routine. Mom would grab the essential supplies, Dad would start the car. It was my job to get my two little brothers dressed and ready. All this in less than 3 minutes, 30 seconds. That's what they told us. That's what they told me would be the safest. Sometimes we'd have drills. Dad would wake us up in the middle of the night and shout that we needed to go. Uncle Adam's house was our go-to. His place was just 15 minutes away. He built a bunker there that was supposed to keep all of us safe. I say supposed to because this was all theory until a few nights ago. When we'd practiced probably 1,000 times, none of us had ever lived through the real thing. The reality of a storm like this is nearly impossible to describe, especially when the storm itself was not what caused the real horror to play out. I'm hooked up to a machine now, in a hospital, in a county away from where I live. I don't know if anyone in my small town is even still alive. A reporter stands outside my door, insisting they want to talk to me. I know it's because they want to turn my tale into sensational news, but I don't really care. Someone needs to know what happened. The truth about this storm. It's 9 p.m. I'm here speaking with Stephen Jaron from the small town of Moon Creek. The reporter said as she sat down opposite me and started up the recorder. Stephen, can you tell me exactly what happened? She whispered. I drew in my breath and I tried to find the right words. I was still shaking. I remember everything about this nightmare because I was at a friend's house, Tommy Anderson, rest in peace. I can hardly bear to relive the experience, but I'll do my best. The cameraman adjusted his angle to zoom in on my face. I wondered if they could see the tremors in my muscles. Just got off the phone with my girlfriend, and we heard the sirens. I think I dropped my phone almost impulsively. The sky was quiet. Couldn't see anything that made it look like there was a storm on the horizon, but Dad had reminded me that the weather could change in an instant, so I instinctively ran to go get my little brothers as the sirens grew louder. Then I remembered I wasn't even home. But 5 minutes later, Tommy's dad was out reviving the car, and his mom was checking for weather reports on her phone. There wasn't anything on the radar that showed bad weather, and maybe they're just testing the sirens, she said. As we stood there and I looked out towards the horizon. I didn't know exactly what their shelter-in-place plan was, but I knew it would mean going across town. That's when I saw it. Tall, impossibly built together, it looked like a skyscraper in the midst of the blank space that was our field. Behind it, a few gentle strokes of lightning illuminated the sky, and I thought I saw the massive thing. Well, I thought I saw it move. I think I must have rubbed my eyes, believing it was some kind of hallucination, and then muttered, maybe we should go to my Uncle Adam's anyway. The sirens suddenly walked down to a soft murmur, and Tommy's mom scratched her head, also staring at that strange tall contraption out on the horizon. Had it been there before? Had it moved? I think it was just a false alarm. Let's go back inside. It's school night, and all you need to get some rest, she decided. His dad killed the car, also looking out at the tall, spindly thing, and said, best to let the dog sleep inside, too. I texted my mom and dad to see if anything happened in their area. Didn't get a response. It was late, so I didn't even think that something might have been wrong. So once I realized that, it was far too late. 2:32 a.m. I remember the time because the noises started again. I slammed my alarm clock instinctively. The sirens, they were louder than before. Almost as though the thing causing them was closer. A rattle outside my door told me a storm was almost on top of us. But this time it was not a test. The house shook as I woke up little Joey, Tommy's brother. Then I opened the window to get a better look outside of the sky. But instead I saw that same building from earlier, except it had definitely moved closer. There's no doubt. Then to my surprise, I saw the thing move. The crackle of lightning flashed across its body and the tower made its low groaning noise, like a beast might. Was it alive? I wondered. I slammed the window. I told Stevie to grab his things, the sirens growing louder as I stumbled down the stairs. My head felt heavy as I got to the bottom. The room spinning. Felt like I was having the worst migraine of my life. At the top of the stairs, I heard Tommy's mom screeching for us to get to the car, and the wind picked up. Was the storm or the creature causing this? Again, the noises intensified as the house shook more, and Tommy's mom covered her ears trying to head down the stairs. Something in the air was making her convulse. She couldn't keep one foot straight, and I watched as she tumbled down the stairs, her head smashing against the banister as she did. Joey screamed. The roof of the house began to tear away. "Mary!" I heard Tommy's dad scream, and he ran in, his ears bleeding as he checked his wife. I don't know if she was alive or dead, but for her sake, I hope it was the latter, given what happened next. See, something above us, something moved in the storm. Its dark, bony fingers reaching into the house like it was a plaything and plucking her from the arms of her husband as though she were a mere doll. Joey kept screaming as I crawled into a tight closet, and I watched the shining metallic arm take Mary into the sky. A few more shrill noises filled the air. Some of them sounded like loud voices.
Tribute. Estimate. Dark. Gassed. Define.
The words made no sense. Just a mess of garbled noise that was making my ears start to bleed as well. All the while, Stevie just kept screaming as this great beast moved out of our house and towards the open street. "We have to warn people," Tommy's dad said as he grabbed me from the closet. We ran to the car, and Joey, he couldn't hardly calm down as we moved. I got out my phone. I tried to call my parents again. There was no response. As the noises from the creature filled the air again, the phone only gave back static, as though it was blocking all outgoing signals. We watched in stunned horror as the long-legged creature moved wistfully through the neighborhood, sounding out more strange words to lure its victims as Tommy's dad got the van started. "Come on, boys," he ordered us. I kept my eyes on the mighty creature, its long arms smashing apart roofs, ripping out victims with little to no effort. Inside the van, at least, the shrieking noises it made were not nearly as numbing. We drove the opposite way, towards downtown. Tommy kept asking me to check my cell for any service, but it was useless. Damn thing had knocked out all service. I remember as we drove, I kept looking back. I kept watching as the creature moved in and out of the clouds. It was so massive. It seemed impossible for it to hide. But every other time I tried to look at it, it'd simply disappear. It was the body covered in like a camouflage or something far more unnatural. As we approached the westbound bridge, the siren started again and Tommy's dad slowed the car down. Was there another creature somewhere? Somewhere nearby? I mean, could it move in packs? I paused now to catch my breath, realizing the reporter had stopped asking questions and was entrapped in my tale. I didn't dare ask if they believed me. I just kept talking. If I talked, maybe someone would believe. Something was in the water. So I could hear churning and spitting up waves of slush and debris moving towards the bridge. Tommy told his dad to drive, and he floored it. Van's tires shrieked as we sped past the dark road. Joey squealed as though he thought it was some kind of game. I watched as the odometer climbed, thinking that we could simply outrun it. Then the droning noise grew to a crescendo, and a massive arm thrust out from the water below. We saw it grab a car in front of us, tossing it aside like it was a plaything, and then from the depths the creature emerged. Lightning crashed across the sky to give me a clear look at it. Even now, I don't know how to properly describe it. I think what was most imposing about it was its lack of eyes. And I realize now that the snake-like tendrils on its neck were acting like lightning rods, drawing in the storm's energy and possibly even powering the beast. All we could do was slam on the brakes and hope the car didn't spin out of control as strange, hypnotic music started to play from its head. I swear to you, I saw teeth. Long, bony fragments of what had once been a creature, opening and gnashing to try and find food. This predator was searching for us, using the storm as bait. He grabbed the back of the van as Tommy's dad turned around and ordered us to quickly escape. I don't think it was because I was so shocked by the monster or because of the noise itself, but I didn't move. I couldn't move. The creature drew the vehicle towards its thin-lipped mouth and started to shout more garbled words toward me.
Hide. Cellar. Bird. Understand. Taken.
None of them made sense. All I could see was the crash of thunder. Those long, gnarly teeth. And suddenly, Tommy's dad was at my side, tossing me from the van and onto the bridge in the nick of time. He pushed his infant son into my arms, and I rolled onto the concrete right underneath the creature's thin, metallic neck and watched as it swallowed the entire vehicle. Grinding up Tommy's dad and the engine with one single gulp. I could hear his screams reverberate in its throat, echo even louder as it seemingly mimicked his cries. As it stood up and crashed through the bridge, toppling the cement and mortar like paper, I still couldn't find the ability to run. I was sure that Tommy's dad would have died in vain, but instead it simply stood there like a statue, sending out low white noise that almost sounded soothing. Were it not for the source. Tommy grabbed my arm. We began to run for the bridge. Joey cried loudly as we tried to keep the rain from hitting him, instead letting it pelt at our backside. We needed to tell someone, anyone what we had seen, warn the town of the danger to come. The reporter told me we needed to take a break and went to grab some water. As she did, I saw she was conversing with a few of the nurses and wondered if she could write me off as crazy. I'd hardly finished my story. I was beginning to wonder if any of it really even mattered. The reporter returned and apologized. I don't have much time left. She just left me some pictures. I recognized many of the victims. People from my town. Some were ripped in two, others missing arms and legs. Few were so mangled they couldn't be properly identified. This is near the school where you were found. Is that where you and Tommy chose to take shelter to wait the storm out? I nodded. She offered me a glass of water as well. Is that where Tommy died? We were walking through town, trying to find a shelter, trying to find anyone really. That destruction was amazing and moved so quickly, faster than any animal I'd ever heard of. We were halfway to the police station when the storm started up again. Tommy and I tried to remain calm. Even Joey had finally managed to calm down. Told me this fun fact about how you tell how far away a storm was by counting the thousandths after a strike. It's nowhere near us, he said. They started to count 12, 1,000, 13, 1,000, then a rumble. That told us it was 15 miles away. The next one was only 11, though. And then just as we reached the edge of the school, we heard the sirens again. I felt the hair on the back of my neck rise up. We had no way of knowing if those were the real storm sirens and the creature walking up. Either way, we ran into the elementary for cover. There was a few loose doors near the gym. Sometimes on weekends, Tommy and I would sneak in there and play basketball. A few other families had made it and helped us inside as the sirens got louder. I don't remember if we asked anyone else whether they had seen the creature. We were all so paralyzed with fear. Tommy tried to stay calm by counting the rumbles of thunder again, or the shockwaves of thunder. And Joey had fallen asleep in a short gap of time. I was wriggling my arms as we listened to crashing thunder. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. I don't know if you ever made it further than that. The rumbles were right on top of us. It was like claws were scratching the roof, ripping apart metal like sheet paper. The whole school began to shake. I remember running with the others towards the stairs of the basement. Tommy was right behind me. Those words it spat out so robotically, they'll stay etched in my head forever. Blood, war, death, system, aggressive. I don't know what they mean. But as we hit the lower part of the gym basement, we saw our friends and schoolmates get slaughtered. The air was quiet again. I think it was searching for us, listening for any hint that we had survived. Then I'll never forget how my friend died. The creature had started to mimic his dad's voice. And in fact, it sounded a little like my mom's too, urging us to come out. Dad? Tommy whispered. He almost believed it. But I knew it couldn't be them. I held Joey close to my body. I tried to stop him, but it was too late. He opened the door, and the mouth of that ungodly beast was right there, its massive, snake-like tongue wriggling out to gobble him up. I was almost a goner, too. Something beneath me gave way, and a bunch of old buckets and debris hid me and Joey from sight as that monster feasted on Tommy. And then it disappeared from sight. I kept hearing it repeat its siren song for hours. It would wane in and out of the storm as it started clearing. And that's all I remember. Paramedics found me and Joey the next morning in the debris. They brought me to the Metro Hospital. I think I saw the carnage that was in these photos, but I can't be sure. All I know is that any trace of the monster was gone. The reporter took up the recorder, pursing her lips as she puzzled over everything I told her. That's quite a story, Stephen. And if what you're saying is true, you're the hero of the day for saving young Joey. What do you mean, if it's true? I nearly died out there. My entire town is gone. No ordinary storm could do that. I know. But still, talks of giants and monsters, it sounds a bit outlandish. Did you get any proof of this? She asked. I had nothing to say. I thought not. I'm sorry, Stephen, but right now I can't be broadcasting such an outlandish tale. I would become the laughingstock of the tri-state area. A single rumble of thunder rocked my window and made me jump as I rubbed my arms and slunk into bed. They left me alone as I stared, waited for the pitter-patter of raindrops. Then I heard another rumble, and I closed my eyes, and I counted. 1, 1,000. 2, 1,000. 3, 1,000. And then came the sirens. I turned to Miss Travis, and she listened as well, her face a bit pale as I whispered, "Your proof is coming this way." Good evening, listeners. I'm Jake Dalen, and this is Dreadful Discussions. If you're joining us for the first time, please be forewarned, this is a horror podcast, and the topics we choose to entertain you with will be both disturbing and unusual, and often be mature in theme. Well then, let's get down to business, shall we? Tonight we are talking about an urban legend that's been spreading around the tri-state area like wildfire, known as a siren, just like the old Greek legends. And now, a brief recap for those of you who are just tuning in. Unlike the old legends, this creature is supposed to be 40 feet tall, and it stalks its prey in the dead of night. It usually uses a variety of camouflage and subterfuge like sound mimicry, thus the siren. Now to start, I brought a local forest ranger, Jesse Sanchez, in to talk about the scientific consensus on whether or not these creatures could possibly be real. You're on with us, Jesse.
Well, first, Jake, thanks for having me. I figured when I got the call and you described some kind of Godzilla kaiju, I wouldn't have to do any research since this is more myth than fact. But as it turns out, there are a lot of animals in nature that have similar survival traits to this towering behemoth. I guess whoever came up with the creepypasta figures basing it off of fact rather than fiction would be more frightening.
Fascinating stuff, Jesse. So you're saying that the reports of hikers and campers finding these massive claw marks in the mountains, they might be true?
Well, at the moment, I can't say that we have any definitive proof that a creature like this does exist. Only rumors and first witness accounts of survivors, although those are few and far between. Personally, I think it's a lot like people who claim to spot UFOs, just desperate for their 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah, I see what you mean. But, come on. What about that kid over in Moon Creek? The whole town, it was destroyed, and he blamed the creature. So why would he do that?
I can't speak for everyone, Mr. Dalen. Who knows what his broken mind conjured up from such a traumatic experience?
Well, there you have it, folks. And that's what the experts have to say about this bizarre gibbon-like creature that is blasting the news. But still, I want to hear what everyone else has to say as well. So be sure to call in now and get on the air. Tell us your theories or stories. I told Anna, my assistant, that I was going to take a 15-minute break and grab some coffee. It was bad weather tonight, so I wasn't expecting very many callers. I checked my messages, and went back to the control room, noting my other guest for the night, conspiracy theorist Kyle Trescott, was running late due to bad roads.
Do you think we should even be airing this right now, Jake? Given all that this area has gone through lately and with the rash of sightings, it just seems like it's in poor taste.
Hey, it's a hot-button issue. You can't just balk at something because it hits too close to home. This is news. People are chatting. Have I had any callers? I asked. I set down my coffee and picked up the headphones. The station shook a little as lightning and rain thrashed around us.
A few. I think one of them might have been a prank, so I just put it on recording. Anyway, I should probably get home, Jake. They say it's gonna get worse.
Wait, you're leaving me to handle all this alone?
Isn't that what you always do?
Was her retort as I turned on the recording again and said, "Sorry folks, I had to get a little bit of a caffeine boost." Since it's a stormy night, let's get our first caller from over in Moon Creek. Now, as many of you know, I mentioned before, this town recently suffered at the hands of an F5 tornado. But according to one young man, that storm was the work of something far more monstrous. So caller, what do you have to say about all of this? There was a short pause, followed by a loud shrill of static and the most peculiar words. I literally dropped the headphones from my ears to avoid the blast of noise. As I rubbed my head sorely, I adjusted my volume, sighing. Looks like someone wants to play pranks on the hapless DJ. That's fine. It's just, we want to a caller from Dunwich County. Hello, ma'am.
Hello? My daughter has been going through a rather strange phase in her life, and if you don't mind, I would love to get some advice on what to do about it. You see, she just turned 6, and like most little girls, she has been enjoying tea parties and playing with dolls.
I think you might have the wrong number, I said, but the woman kept talking.
Recently, though, I've noticed she spent a lot of time with one particular toy, her stuffed giraffe, and she is insisting that Mr. Raff is quite alive.
Suddenly the woman's voice changed, and it sounded like a little girl in the background.
Mommy, Mr. Raff says that he doesn't like it when you turn the light off at nighttime. He wants to sleep with the night light on so he can keep an eye on me. Mommy, Mr. Raff says he can't take a bath anymore or he won't be able to stay with me. Please don't wash him. At first I didn't mind adhering to her requests, but then I noticed something odd.
I don't know why I kept listening to this strange woman's story. Couldn't fathom the connection just yet.
She would tell me that her stuffed toy would want her to get undressed, or to lay down and spread eagle to the ground. Things that no ordinary 6-year-old would ever consider. And sometimes I would hear the giraffe make these god-awful high-pitched noises, as though something was taking over its voice box. Petty, trench, station, slice, border. The noises were so loud and the house started to shake. It made my body paralyzed when it blasted that sound. You want to know something, Mr. Dalen? It took my daughter from me. It took everything I had, ripped my house to shreds like cardboard and destroyed it all. It is a living nightmare. A spawn of the devil himself.
Somehow I broke free from the hypnotic words of the despondent mother and realized that she was blaming her child's disappearance on a mythical monster. I told her to stay on the line and we'll get back to her, but honestly, I was thinking she had to be nuts.
Why would this creature hurt innocent people and hunt them down? Was it doing this for sport? But it was just a mindless creature, wasn't it?
I shook my head, realizing I was getting distracted again, and opened up the next line for the next caller.
Is this Dreadful Discussions?
It is. Who's speaking?
Commander Hal Peterson of the United States Marine Corps. I needed to say a few words of warning to your listeners about this creature.
Well, thank you for your service, Commander. So are you saying that what we've been hearing is...
Of course it's true. Just because something sounds unbelievable doesn't mean that it can't happen in the real world. There are dozens of species that when first discovered, the scientific community thought it was just a hoax. But I have seen the reality of how these things operate. They are gods, and we are just ants.
Outside, the wind whipped as the commander kept talking. It was almost certain that I could hear the distinctive white noise that the siren head was giving out.
Because you have opened this door, it's not going to close just because you want it to, son. This thing is a merciless predator, and just talking about it, just when pretending that it might be real, you're inviting it to come find you.
Commander, perhaps you could tell the audience about your own experience with the creature.
If it will make people listen, I can try.
Well, we are all here to keep an open mind, sir, so please, go ahead.
My squad was tasked to hunt them down. 5 other units had already tried and failed. We were the last line of defense before it reached civilization. But we hardly even scratched the surface of how powerful these giants are. We had brought 2 army tanks to join in our search near the preserve. We heard of how animals were being crushed and killed like bugs, but we thought bringing more firepower would make a difference.
Outside, the wind whipped as the commander kept talking. It's almost certain I could hear those distinctive white noises.
It just picked up the tanks and smashed them to bits. We were playthings to it. Darkness and cold clung to our bodies like an extra layer of skin, covering us in this nightmarish, dank smell of fires that were scorching the entire forest. As we sat there, shivering and trembling, there weren't any words of comfort. We had thought we could fight a god, and this was our punishment for even thinking so. My closest officer was now just a charred corpse, portions of her fingers melting to the bone, as the ground shook once more, and the water from above poured down on us. The creature could sense our fear.
Again, a rumble of thunder and the sirens outside my station told me I needed to flee, but I needed to hear more. Where was this at, Commander? How close were you to it?
I held onto my rifle and searched for what little shelter there was left. There was a crawl space just beneath the bridge, but only a few moments after escaping there, it seemed to turn into an underwater grave for the corpses here. I closed my eyes, crying in pain as the rubble shifted and the walls gave way, pushing the bodies around me and into the devastated forest and the open maw of the monster.
The line abruptly went dead, and more angry static took its place. My heart beat faster as the power went out. I needed to leave. I grabbed my cell and saw a few missed calls from Kyle as I hurried to get out. First message.
Some in the media are saying that this type of investigation that the military has been doing is illegal, and it downright qualifies the organization they work for as being anti-humanitarian. A recent poll shows at least 77% of Americans and Europeans believe that these creatures should be exterminated. What would you say to those people?
Who was he talking to? Then I heard the commander's voice on the line, and I realized the conspiracy theorist must have interviewed him at some point.
Mankind in general has every right to be fearful of these creatures considering the power they possess. And it should be noted that both conventional and nuclear weapons were authorized during the incident in Yosemite. Right now, the focus needs to be placed on the studying of these monsters and figuring out how their mutation has allowed them to survive this long.
I understand you have been adamant that you did at one time believe that the creatures were actually dormant, and the work being done at Arkham was purely scientific.
That is correct. I'm sure by now most of the media has construed my intentions as some sort of terrorist, but I assure you I have always been interested in the way these monsters can benefit society as a whole. The untapped biology of this creature alone is enough to consider wanting to study them.
Second message.
According to our data we collected, your father is the one credited with first discovering the creatures during 1956. Is that right?
A second voice came on the line as I rushed out of the station. I didn't recognize it, but the man sounded frightened.
For the most part of 20 years, he was affected by the creature in his youth.
So why is it that no tissue samples have been taken of it by now?
As I stepped out of the station, a mix of smoke and dirt filled the air as I struggled to breathe. My hands covered my mouth as I searched frantically for my keys. The sky around me felt alive as I kept watching the rumbling clouds. A shiver ran down my spine. It was a child's terror brought to life. A dark, towering beast lumbering towards the station, its twin mouths open and rumbling with a rage deep and ancient as it began to run towards my station. It took a moment to come to my senses and start my car, back up and drive away.
It's not that we haven't tried. His skin is tougher than the strongest known man-made material. The closest we have come to is a skeleton in the Philippines of another similar creature.
That was in 1999, is that right?
Yes. Conspirators will tell you it was a planned attack on the Japanese government. But with the recent release of files to the UN, I'm sure all of us will agree that for the most part, the intended result was to study seismic activity in the area.
I knew where this line of questioning was headed, but I couldn't wait around to listen to the rest of the messages. I revved the engine on and I drove. placing the line on the speaker. I could hardly make out what was being heard as I crashed through the road.
I suppose that leads me to wonder then, Doctor, why no formal report was given to any political government considering that this research had gone on according to those released files for at least 50 years.
It was a collective decision that was made before I was born.
So, if the choice was made to eliminate the threat of these creatures, would you be against it?
There was a pause. Then it dawned on me. This was the man that had discovered these things to begin with. Evidence of his involvement in keeping them secret.
We as humans need to reevaluate our place on this planet and the natural order of things. Each living organism has a right to exist and serves a purpose, even if we do not realize what that means. It may be to our detriment to even consider such an outcome.
I could see this giant crashing through my station as another call came through. It was Kyle. Where the hell had he been? This is Jake. The thing, it's real. It destroyed the station. It's after me, I said, trying to catch my breath.
Did you listen to the tapes?
How could I not? What does this all mean? I shouted as I drove across town. Somehow the monster was keeping speed with me. I could see it crashing across the horizon, its mighty, hypnotic call destroying everything in its path.
You don't understand it still? This is not some alien menace that is threatening us. The creature is a titan, a monster from old myth, long dormant in the earth but awakened by men. It's the rightful ruler of this world, and now it's on a path of extermination. It will keep destroying and conquering until it has finished us. All of us.
I made it out of town. The thing finally faded from following me, but I could still hear its immense shrieks across the sky. It's hunting me now. Same way it found all the rest of its prey, a predator with immense, endless energy, destroying anything that stands in its path. I can't in good faith say that this creature is pure fiction any longer. Which is why I leave this final broadcast as a warning for anyone who thinks that hearing these tales is just for fun. The creatures are coming. They're coming. And they can't be stopped. Hey there kids, it's me, Mr. Creepypasta, and I just want to make sure that all of you guys are still staying safe and doing your best to stay inside and keep yourself quarantined if you can do so. For those of you who can't, really appreciate you guys doing what you have to do. So, all the best to all of you who are still working, and all the best to all of you who are forced to kind of stay home and are not able to work. If you guys are missing out on a lot of the conventions, which at this point, all of them that I was planning on going to this year, with the exception of San Japan, looks like have been either canceled or pushed back. If you guys were looking forward to any of the conventions this year and are missing out on a lot of the artwork from some of your favorite authors or artists, take a look in the description down below. At least until the quarantine is over, you'll be able to find links to a bunch of my artist friends as well as authors in the description of every video. And of course, I will be bringing you guys stories every single day from now until the end of time, available here on YouTube as well as here on the podcast on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and Google, and wherever else you can get podcasts. And now a very special thank you, big thank you, the biggest thank you I can possibly give to all of you who support on patreon.com/MrCreepypasta, who help keep the lights on in my house. Patreons such as Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Ken Lendo Higuchi, Brianna Ventine Jensen, Chompinski, The Red Oak Shield Virus, Sandy Barney, G. Weevil 3, Diana Kraus, Stephen Van Huss, Tristan Pelton, Nico Cowell, The Ginger Bros, Dante Rao, Rafael Rodriguez, Last Blade Song, Eliminator 86, Nebsky, Steampunk Sinner, Caleb Dougal, Daniel Paulson, Sky Harbor, The Homeless Bird 93, Gabrielle Undefined, Barbie Carmen, Liam Newman, Aaron Stormcrow, Dr. Strawberry, Barbara Masio, Thomas Burgett, Azazel Rotten, Let's Get Scared, S-Man, Brandy Hasanori, and King DDD. Thank you guys so much for supporting on Patreon, as well as all of you that are shown in the description down below. And sweet dreams, everyone.